Look at this journal I've got. Like, I don't know if that'll focus, but it's like a hero's journey themed journal slash daily work tracker. It's so pretty. It's so cool. It arrived It arrived completely by surprise, because there's no note with it. So I think this is a gift because I'm donating to NaNoWriMo. I think. So this made my donations completely worth it. That and helping fellow writers, of course. Yes, that was a bit of a tangent. Time to chat about some books. I'm Emma, thanks for joining me. I didn't read that much in June. I only finished 2 books because I was on holiday and basically didn't really have any reading time on holiday. I took 2 ebooks with me, and I don't mean individual books, I mean a Kindle and a Kobo, because I'm an insane person. I took those with me and then I had no time for reading because there was so much happening on that holiday. So I thought there was no point in doing just a June wrap up. I thought I'd roll June and July into one. Oh, and the reason why I had this is so that I can remember everything that I read. Let's start with the digital version, because if I don't, I'll forget. So, as an ebook, I read Lonely Castle in the Mirror. Another one for my Japanese fiction collection. This is a book that centers around a girl who no longer goes to school. Something has happened that makes her so anxious that she now only stays at home. And one day, the mirror in her room lights up and she walks through it. And on the other side is a huge house, a huge castle, that is sort of managed by a little girl in a wolf mask. Other children have also been invited to this castle. All of them have been told that this castle will be around for a year, and in that year they have the opportunity to look for a key and a magic door, and if they find these things they can make a wish. These children end up using this as more of an opportunity to socialise with each other, because as it turns out, these are all kids who also don't go to school for various reasons. So they all have something in common, and this becomes an essential part of their day, because they're not getting to socialise with anyone else, and this is actually an opportunity for them to make friends. And what's cool about the setup is that you then have this query of what is more important, the time that they're spending together, or this potential wish that will solve some magical problems. Obviously there's debates, because for some friends, for some of the kids, that friendship is the most important thing to them right now. But for others, the hardships and the horrors they've gone through that have meant that they don't want to go to school, that is the reason they don't want to go to school, just overshadows everything else. And they see the wish as a way to fix everything, and they'd rather have that fix than keep the memories of their friends. So it's a book that asks cool questions, but considering the subject matter, it never it never reached a height of something like a Miyako Kawakami book. For me, it kind of felt like there was still something missing though, and I can't pinpoint what it was. It was a book that felt like it had a lot of the right ingredients, but it's not one that really stuck with me. And you'd think one that features bullying but really nice relationships, you think it kind of would, but there was something that was not quite right. I don't know if that is actually because you have this sort of magic element, but also this extra mystery on top, because this mystery is one of those things that just seems so obvious to me, and it's just kind of frustrating that none of the characters think about it, and then they just come to some really bizarre conclusion that is just completely wrong. And it also tries to fit things together at the very end, in a sentimental way that kind of comes from nowhere and unfortunately didn't feel earned. But that's a minor point against it. I still enjoyed it. It just wasn't the absolute best book I've ever read. This is what the hard thing when a book just falls in the middle. It's so difficult to chat about it. It's just fine. Next we have not The Final Empire, but I finished Well of Ascension and The Hero of Ages. I've literally just recorded a chat about how I feel about both of those books, so I will just say it was really great reading them. I had a lot of fun. Go watch that video if you want to hear my thoughts on these. In a similar vein, we have two Japanese fiction books, The Nakano Thrift Shop and All the Lovers in the Night. I also did a review about both of these, so I'll try to be very brief. Nakano Thrift Shop, very slow-paced slice of life. Nothing amazingly special, but I do recommend it if you need an easy read in between bigger, more complex books. In fact, I kind of feel like this is what I need right now, but I can't reread it after a month, because I'm reading two quite complex books and I'm kind of yearning for a simple read. So if you're in that position, this is a good one to pick up. All Lovers in the Night. I love it. So, Kawakami, she just works magic. We have a woman in her 30s. She's actually my age. And she is dealing with immense anxiety, and probably loneliness and depression. She doesn't really have many people in her life, but she's also very terrified to step out of her comfort zone, that is her apartment and her one job. You know, she's a woman without hobbies, and even without a personality, it kind of seems. So this is an important point in her life where things start to shift slightly. Only slightly. Like I said, I've done a whole review for this. It's fantastic. Either check out my review or just go read it. Here's one I've not mentioned anywhere else, and that is Cyclopedia Exotica. This is actually something I did read on holiday, but that is because it is a lot of comics. So apparently these started as an online thing, I think. But these are comics featuring a group of characters who are all Cyclops, or all but one. And this is a world where there is a second human-ish species, and they are the Cyclops. And this kind of depicts a world where they've entered our society like generations ago, so they are like any other human with some exceptions, and they're just purely physical. They have one eye, they have a uniboob. They give birth to almost two children at once, but not quite. There's a whole reproductive system thing. But the concept is that this is a way to show prejudices against other people who look very different. But it's also very funny. And in a way that funny comics do, I think it is brilliant at kind of showing these awkward and sometimes frustrating or sad moments that happen when people are prejudiced or make mistakes. There are also some bits that kind of go into like the surgeries that are open for Cyclopses. So there's like this operation that eventually got banned, but they could split that eye into two. But one of the characters has had this done, and the other eye's sort of gone dead, and there's no way to fix that. So now he has an eye patch, and he's back to having one eye, but it's not a Cyclops eye. And there's other things that are like fixing their boobs to make them a double boob, to be more like regular humans. And I really liked all of that stuff. Yeah, I really recommend it. It was a cute read, and I'll probably reread it at some point, because the characters in it are surprisingly sweet, and it was lovely, but also had a good message. We are in the realm of my throat drying up, so let's be quick. And finally, the first season by N.K. Jemisin. I can't believe it took me months to pick this up. I think because it's had so many awards, and because of that first chapter that is told in quite a stylistic way, I got a bit intimidated with it and thought I'd have to pick a time when I was ready. You know, there's books where you know you have to time it right. But actually, once I got a couple chapters in, I realised that I was worrying way too much, and it was going to be a lot more of a straightforward read than I thought. And I had a great time with it. So I covered this a bit in a recent vlog, but I understand that you might not have seen the vlog. It kind of occurred to me that this is a book set in a version of Earth, or a world where life-threatening events and natural disasters happen to an extreme degree. It is sort of known as part of human history that every so often there will be a season, and these seasons will kill off a lot of people. These can be giant earthquakes and shifts in tectonic plates, or it can be a volcano erupting and sending poisonous gas across the land. So this is a setting that is very harsh, and so the people who live in this world are very survivalist. They are determined to bunker down, and they set out rules that will help them survive. But amongst humankind, we also have the Origines. So these are a group of people with the power to use the energy of the earth or send energy into the earth. They can create earthquakes, they can shift chunks of rock, but the energy exchange also means that they can move heat, so sometimes they have these circles of frost that surround them. And basically all of these Origines have the power to create huge shifts in the earth and are extremely powerful. So in my vlog, I kind of described it as having mutants, but where everyone is a Magneto level threat. And a threat is what the world sees them as. And so there are very strict rules in how they must behave and how they are treated. And that's if they're lucky enough to stay alive long enough to reach the Fulcrum, which is the sort of like training ground. Because it's also very common for a child to be discovered to be an Origin and then just killed. And sadly, that is how this book begins. Our main character comes home and finds her son has been killed. And she knows the reason because she herself is an Origin and she knows that she has passed that power onto her children. So it's a very bleak start, and it's quite a dark setting, but it never falls into feeling really depressing. It's not a book that will put you in a really bad mood, or at least I don't think it will. I think the tone manages to sit nice. It's never light, but it's never overly dark either. I think there's a good balance here where you can be subject to these really dark themes, but still be able to move forward through the story. I think the world building is fantastic, and it's really great to see how characters deal with being treated as an other. And yes, that's something we've seen before. Like I said, X-Men is a great example, but it does raise that question of, well, they are very powerful and they are very strong, so you can see why people in this world are very scared of them. But obviously how they're treated is definitely not right. These people do not have any freedom to live life how they want. They are controlled from day one. And that becomes a push and a fight between characters where some just say, look, this is the world that we're in. Nothing's going to change. And then you have characters who are fighting to follow the rules, but in the back of their head are thinking, but this is wrong. We shouldn't be treated this way. This is horrible. I think that there's a really great scene early on where a girl is picked up by something called a Guardian. So these are people with the power to stop Origins and stop their powers. He presents himself as like a bit of a savior at first, so a bit of a white savior. So she's been treated really badly by her family since finding out what she is, and he's come to take her away. He's come to help her. He's come to her rescue. He's going to take her somewhere where she will be safe. And the way he acts is like he wants her to treat him like family and trust him. But along the journey to the Fulcrum, he tells her stories, but she realizes that the stories he tells feature Origins as the bad guy. And he pushes her and he tests her. And you realize that the things that he's doing, even though the way he speaks makes him sound very nice, he's actually being very abusive. And later on you learn that this is how all Origins are treated. It's fantastic. I see why it's praised so much, and I really can't wait to pick up the next two. I'm definitely going to interrupt my TBR. I had a whole summer TBR, and I'm definitely going to readjust so that I can keep on going with these. Because on top of these sort of themes and questions, there's also some really cool sci-fi and magic stuff going on. So I kind of want to see where that goes as well. Yeah, that's a recommendation from me. Whew. And I think that is it. We're out of books. We're out of books. So that was 6 total. Finished 2 in June. No, wait. Did I finish? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I did 8, but I thought I did 7. I did 8 books between June and July. So they're the books. Don't forget about Lily Castle and the Mirror. That was on there too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye!